Chapter 28, Why Didn't They Hang Jim? The doctor was an old man, a very nice, kind-looking old man, when I got him up. I told him we had been hunting over on a Spanish island yesterday afternoon and had camped on a piece of raft we found. About midnight, my brother must have kicked his gun in his dreams, for it went off and shot him in the leg. Would he fix it and not let anybody know about it? For we wanted to come home and surprise the folks. Who are your folks, he said. The Phelps down yonder. Oh, he said. And after a minute, how do you say he got shot? He had a dream, I said, and it shot him. Strange dream, he said. So we lit up his lantern and got his bag, and we started. When we saw the canoe, he said she didn't look safe for two. I said, oh, you need to be afraid, sir? She carried the three of us easy enough. What three? Why, me and Sid and the guns. Oh, he said. But he put his foot on the boat and rocked her and shook his head, so he took my canoe and said, for me to wait till he got back. Or maybe I had better go home and get them ready for the surprise. I told him how to find the raft, and then he started. I crept into a lumber pile to get some sleep. Next time I waked up, the sun was away over my head. I shot out and went for the doctor's house. They told me he had gone away in the night sometime or other and hadn't come back yet. Well, I thought that looks bad for Tom, and I'll get out to the island right off. I turned the corner and nearly rammed my head into Uncle Silas's stomach. He said, why, Tom, where you been all this time, you rascal? I haven't been anywhere, only hunting for the runaway slave with Sid. Wherever did you go, he said. Your aunt has been mighty uneasy. She needn't, I said. We followed the men and the dogs, but they outran us and we lost them. We thought we heard them on the water, so we got a canoe and took out after them and crossed over. Then we cruised along upshore till we got kind of tired and beat out. So we tied up the canoe and went to sleep and didn't wake up till about an hour. We paddled over to hear of the news. Sid is at the post office. Uncle Silas said we'd go to the post office and get him. Just as expected, he wasn't there. The old man got a letter out of the office and said, come along, let's Sid foot in home, or canoe it, when he gets done fooling around. I couldn't get him to let me stay and wait for his Sid. When we got home, Aunt Sally was so glad to see me, she laughed and cried both, and let me have one of her lickings that didn't amount to shucks. She said she'd serve Sid the same when we got home. The place was plumb full of farmers and farmers' wives, and such another clack was never heard, tongues going all the time. When it was late in the day, the people all left. Pretty soon, Aunt Sally jumped up and said, why, laws a mercy, it's most night and Sid not come yet. What has become of that boy? I'll run right up to town and get him, I said. No, you won't. You stay right where you are. One is enough to be lost at a time. If he's not here by supper, your uncle will go. Well, he wasn't there to supper, so right after supper, Uncle went. It was 10 o'clock before he was back, a little bit uneasy, for he hadn't run across track of Tom. Aunt Sally was a good deal uneasy. Uncle Silas said no need to worry. Boys will be boys, and he'll turn up in the morning all sound and right. She said she stayed up for him a while anyway and kept the light burning so we could see it. When I went to bed, she went along with me and tucked me in so good I felt mean and couldn't look her in the face. When she was leaving, she looked down in my eyes so gentle and said, the door won't be locked, Tom, and there's the window and the lightning rod, but you'll be good, won't you? You won't go, for my sake? Laws knows I wanted to be bad enough to see about Tom and had intended to go, but after that I wouldn't have gone, not for my kingdoms. But she was on mine and Tom was on my mind, so I slept very restless. Twice I went down the lightning rod and slipped around front to see there by the candle in the window. I wished I could do something for her, but all I could do was to swear would never again do anything to grieve her. The third time I waked up, it was dawn. I slipped down and she was there yet, her old gray head resting on her hand. She was asleep. The old man was uptown again before breakfast, but couldn't get track of Tom. After breakfast, both of them stayed at the table, thinking not eating anything, but looking mournful, their coffee getting cold. By and by, the old man said, did I give you that letter? What letter? The one I got yesterday out of the post office. No, you didn't give me any letter. I must have forgot it. He felt his pockets, brought out the letter and handed it to her. Why, from St. Petersburg. It's from Sis. I thought a walk would do me good, but I couldn't stir. But before she could break the letter open, she dropped it and went tearing out, for she'd seen some things. It was Tom Sawyer on a mattress, and that old doctor and Jim with his hands tied behind him, and a lot of other people. I hid the letter behind the first thing that was handy, and rushed out. Aunt Sally flung herself on Tom crying and said, oh, he's dead, I know he is. Tom turned his head a little and muttered something that showed he wasn't in his right mind. Then she flung up in her hands and said, he's alive, thank God. And away she went to get the bed ready, throwing orders right and left as fast as her tongue could go. The old doctor and Uncle Silas followed after Tom into the house. I followed the men who had Jim to see what they meant to do with him. Some of them wanted to hang him, as an example not to run away, but the others said, no, he ain't ours. His owner will turn up and make us pay for him sure. That idea cooled them down a little, but they fetched him a cuff or two on the head and cussed him. Jim never said a word. He didn't let on to know me. They took him to the same cabin and said he wasn't to have anything to eat but bread and water till his owner claimed him, or he was sold at auction if he never was claimed. About this time, the old doctor comes to take a look and said, don't be rougher on him than you have to be. He's not bad. When I found the wounded boy, I saw I could cut the bullet out with some help. and he was in no state to be left alone while I went for help. He was out of his head, wouldn't let me come near him. Then out crawls this runaway slave from somewhere and says he'll help. And he did too. I had to stick there till daylight this morning, and I never saw a better nurse. And he was risking his freedom to do it. I liked him for that. I tell you, gentlemen, a slave like this is worth kind treatment. The men softened up a little bit. I judged I would get the doctor's story to Aunt Sally, so Jim wouldn't have to live on bread and water. But first, I would have to get through the breakers just ahead of me. How was I to explain why I forgot to mention about Sid being shot? When I was telling how we put in the dreaded night paddling around hunting for a runaway. But I had plenty of time. Aunt Sally stuck to the sick room all day and all night, and every time I saw Uncle Silas mooning around, I dodged him.